So I'm Scott Moulton. I do computer forensics as my day job. I also run a data recovery company. So a lot of you probably know me from some of my other speeches, which are all animated. I do all those nice, rich, expensive animations for hard drives and solid state. And while this speech isn't actually animated, I do have another one later this afternoon at 6 o'clock, which is all about solid state hard drives that is animated. But one of the things that some of you might not know, if you submit a speech to Black Hat, if they reject you, they send you the comments that other people who are paying people actually, make statements about your presentation. So I submitted this one to Black Hat, and the comments I got back when they rejected me, there was one guy who says, "You know what? I would really like to see an animated version of a computer forensics guy taking a PI exam." So he thought it was pretty funny, put ha ha ha. So I said something to my son about that, and he turned around and made us this. So this is going to be the extent of animation in this presentation. So there you go. And that's done by Brandon right here in the there you go. Thank you, Brandon. All right, so let's start off. So outside of that, this is not animated. So if you want to see the animated stuff and all the bazillion dollars of that, that's this afternoon. And then the other thing I want to make sure is I am not your lawyer. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to be your lawyer. You can call me for defense work or something. I'll help you out. But so you got to do all your own work to try to figure out what's legal in your states. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of stories saying, oh, it's good this day, but it's not good this day. So you're just going to have to trust me on that and make sure you talk to your lawyer. And I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot of angry people about this stuff. And keep in mind, I am not the person who's trying to do this legislation. So don't throw stuff at me. I just happen to be the first person that was actually tried to be removed because of this legislation 2 years ago. So just keep that in mind. Don't get all angry and throw stuff at me. The real story here is if you want to do something about it, you should really try to have tech people becoming politicians. Because in the near and short future, that's all we're going to have. If no tech people get involved, there's not going to be any solutions to any of these problems. So this is for your entertainment. So why this speech is important to you. The first thing is that in a lot of states, in a lot of different places, these laws are going into effect with no grandfathering. They're taking place immediately. And I wrote this speech months and months ago before other issues like Michigan and stuff have come up. But I've been anticipating that this was going to be a problem for about 2 years. And I've been posting on boards and every place I can post for the last 2 years. So a lot of you can see that if you just Google my name or do something. But this is very important. They're coming in with no grandfathering, which means in about 30 days they pass these laws. Next thing you know, you're out of business. So if anybody, how many people in here are doing computer forensics? Wow, that's a pretty good amount of people. How many in here are doing it for a private third-party company? That's about half of that. So that's the big issue. If you're doing it for an internal company, something like AT&T or someplace like that, technically you're not violating the law. But if you're going outside of that, you're violating the law. So if this passes in 30 days and you didn't even know about it, you're out of a job. One more time. How many of you are already PIs? Oh, that's a really low number. What, 2, 3 people in the whole room? So, besides me. So, and then the other thing is that in a lot of cases, the PI board is just making one change. They're trying to change what is currently a misdemeanor to a felony and then going after people saying that we didn't make a big change in the law. All we did was make it now a felony for the things that already were a PI and then trying to apply it to computer stuff. So you're going to find that out here in a few minutes. Most of this, people just do not believe applies to them at all. I've had a number of discussions with people that just say, well, I don't fit into that description. But when you start looking at the content and what it really means, if you are holding yourself out as a third party, you're doing anything for any legal purpose, then basically that ends up being the things that fall under that category. So there's a couple things, we'll go through them. But even people who do like handwriting analysis and stuff, they believe that this does not apply to them. That there's one certification for handwriting analysis, and if you're going to testify in court, you've got to have this one certification, and that's all that applies to them. But a certification is not a professional license. There is a division there. Basically, professional licenses are done by states, and the states decide who's in charge. There's a board put in place, and then there's a charge, and there's a number of things you have to go through. A certification does not fit into that category at all, period. Sometimes a certification is used to get the license, but it is not the license. So I just want to make sure you guys are clear on that as we're going through this, because I'm going to anger some people about what the point of a certification is if you have to be a PI. So, these people just don't believe it applies to them. So this is an example of what just happened. How many people here are from Michigan? Okay, so there's a few. So how many people were aware that it's now a felony to do the crime of computer forensics in Michigan? Yeah, so there's only a few people who weren't. So right now, as of May 28th, going into effect immediately, passing in about 30 days, they basically changed the law to state, and they actually included the definition of computer forensics, but it took effect immediately the same day that they passed it, which was May 28, 2008. And now it is a felony. So the penalty is that you get a possibility, and if it's a felony, you're going to get at least 1 year in jail in most cases, and so up to 4 years, and then a $5,000 fine. And if you've already been convicted of a felony, you can't become a PI. So you're kind of like, after you're out, you can't even go do the job you were already doing. So I think that's a pretty big deal. And one of the opinions about these laws that are starting to take place, people think that regulation is needed. I hear that all the time. It's like, oh, this is a good thing, that regulation is needed. And because, that way the Geek Squad isn't stealing your personal private information because now they've got to be a PI. I don't know that's going to solve the problem because generally those aren't the people you're paying them, so they're not generally stealing your information. And then a lot of people, really, the PIs in most cases, have kind of a bad rep. When you say PI, you think, well, they're doing surveillance or something. So most people would accept the worst computer guy they know over a PI doing their work. And so that's an opinion I hear all the time. That's not my opinion directly, but it's in there. So, and then a lot of people say that this is a field of science. And if it's a field of science, then why is it trying to fit underneath this PI wing where there is no science? There's nothing to the test. There's nothing from that standpoint that is scientific. So, and then as I stated earlier, people who do like question documents and handwriting experts, as they leave whatever legality, the types of fields that they're working in, and they go into a third party and try to sell their skills and testify maybe for the defense or something, that's now becoming an issue. So these people just don't think that it applies to them. And it's kind of, if you're in a situation where the law applies to some people but not other people, and somebody can choose whether or not they're going to prosecute you or not, then typically you're looking at void for vagueness or something like that in some laws. Again, I'm not a lawyer, so. And then a lot of other people think that all PIs do is surveillance. So if they're doing surveillance, how helpful are they going to be to you doing computer forensics or doing anything else? So this comes to my point, which is all of these certifications. How many people have at least one of these somewhere? That's pretty much the whole room, most of the room. Somebody's got at least one of these certifications. And regardless of which of these certifications that you have, it is all trumped by this. If you go and you get your PI license, that is what is going to be what is enabling you on the stand. Now, I understand you can still be qualified as an expert and you can still testify and not have to have the license. But after talking to several lawyers, the issue becomes you've just testified that you committed a felony. So now they just use your testimony in the prosecution of you. So they may allow you to testify, but basically this is going to be the first step now of, are you a PI? If you're not a PI, then, get him out of the court because he's not qualified because he's not licensed by the state. So that becomes a major issue. So basically this is a summary type email that I got from somebody because the whole point comes down to that this guy finds it shocking and narrow-minded that states think that computer forensics experts have to have a license in order to testify, but yet private investigators can have no clue about what's on the computer, but yet they are the only ones who can testify. So what he's saying here, and I agree with it wholeheartedly, this is what the whole thing is about, is that they are legally enabled to testify in a case, even if they've never touched a computer. They have rights that you don't have, even though you may have been doing computers for 25 years. So that's starting to become a major issue, and with some of the time frames it takes to become a PI, it's not a short issue either.